Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating story where a jury has to do the impossible, pass judgment on an invisible cosmic entity. We're jumping in right as they head into the deliberation room. So as soon as the jury starts talking, they hit this massive philosophical wall. A juror named Diesel just nails their problem with this one analogy. If someone steps off a cliff, is gravity guilty of murder? I mean, that's the core issue they've got to figure out. So yeah, the jury is immediately deadlocked. And the whole conversation is really being driven by four key people. And the thing is, each one has a completely different and totally conflicting view on what evil and responsibility even mean. On one side, you've got Diesel. He is all about personal responsibility, period. He's basically saying if you decide to smoke and you get sick, that's on you. But then you have Abby, who argues, yeah, free will is a thing, but the Tempter's constant lies and deception, that's the real crime here. That's what needs to be judged. And the debate gets even more fundamental when they start talking about what the Tempter actually is. You've got Serpent, who kind of sees him as a necessary evil, maybe even like an employee of God who's just doing his job. But Rev? No way. He sees a purely malevolent criminal whose only goal is destruction, making him completely unfit for any society. So the jury is just stuck. I mean, with these totally opposite views, getting a unanimous decision seems absolutely impossible. That is, until the story's protagonist, a guy named Evan, makes this shocking move that doesn't target the defendant, but a member of the jury itself. Evan just stands up and points a finger, directly accusing juror Serpent of being a dedicated Satanist. He claims Serpent is totally biased and was bribed to get on the jury just to make sure it ended in a deadler. As you can imagine, Serpent just loses it. He's yelling that a jury can't just vote out one of its own members. But Evan pushes forward and forces a vote anyway. And it turns out the other jurors are pretty tired of Serpent's biased arguments, so 11 of them raise their hands to have him removed. And with that one vote, the entire dynamic in the room just flips. Turns out Evan was right all along, because Serpent gets hauled away in handcuffs, a new juror is sworn in, and all of a sudden, a unanimous decision actually seems possible. Now, with the main troublemaker gone, Evan seizes the moment. He completely reframes the entire debate, pushing all the emotion aside and focusing everyone on a series of simple and, as you'll see, devastatingly logical questions. What he does is brilliant. He basically sets a logical trap in 3 parts. First, he gets them all to agree that there's a non-physical source of crime out there. Then, that some being is responsible for it. And finally, that this source has no place in their society. And with each question, every single juror raises their hand, not even realizing they're walking right into the only possible conclusion. And that's the checkmate. That's his closing argument. By getting them to agree to those 3 simple premises, Evan has logically backed the jury into a corner. If they believe a defined entity is committing crimes that shouldn't be allowed, well, then they have to find that entity guilty. There's no other choice. So based on this completely new way of looking at things, one that neatly sidesteps all the tricky philosophical debates about God's will or the nature of gravity, the jury comes to a unanimous agreement. And they do it quickly. They find the Tempter guilty. But, this just opens up an even bigger can of worms. What now? How on earth do you sentence an invisible cosmic force? The jury decides the only sentence that makes any sense is a social one. They basically say, look, remember how we had to cast Serpent out of this room to find peace? Well, the community has to do the same thing with the Tempter. The punishment isn't a prison cell, it's a complete and total shunning by every single citizen. Okay, so this brings us back to that mysterious black box that's been sitting in the courtroom this whole time. The one that everyone just assumed was holding the actual Tempter captive. After the verdict is read, a juror finally asks the question that's been on everyone's mind. So, should we open the box now? Tell the Tempter he's been evicted? And Evan's answer is the final, incredible twist of the whole story. The box, it was never a literal prison for some external demon. No, it was a personal symbol this entire time. You see, the box is a tool. It's for personal accountability. The whole trial was never really about judging some cosmic entity out there. It was a piece of public theater designed to inspire each person to confront the Tempter inside themselves and make a commitment to stop feeding it. And so the narrative leaves us with this really provocative final thought. It brilliantly shifts the focus away from a mythical trial and puts it right back onto the very real, everyday choices that we all make. Thanks for joining this explainer.